So let's launch today's coaching. Today we are going to coach or play some 6-handed turbos on 888Poker. Last week we did normal speed 6 maxes and the next week we will go for the super turbos. And this is actually really weird because I said that on 888Poker there is a slight problem because you are having so many different structures. And now when I launched these 6-handed turbos so that I can get the session going as soon as possible, I think it's quite interesting to see that this $3 turbo has a slightly different structure than all the other games. On this $3 game, the structure is does only have around 1,200 chips per player at the start, and on these other $7 and $15 games it's 1,500 chips to start with, but otherwise the structures seem identical and the play is almost identical, except in these games you are starting a bit deeper. As you can see, at 10-20 level it's 75 big blinds, in here it's only 60 big blinds. For why are there threes in the intro? My nickname would be practically in English would be Ye Olde Forest. So that's why there are a lot of threes in the intro. But I guess that's hard to open up if you don't know Finnish. And of course I knew I forgot something. So I forgot to change the title in Twitch. But we'll see. Too early to open. On the top right corner, I don't think that we have that much strength with our... And when our opponent checks back, I'm thinking that he shouldn't have anything done and he should give up pretty often. And practically with 10 high, our only way to win the pot is to bluff. And Marcus Y has been making the music in the video with his brother Northern, that's also a member of Pokerimania, so... But so, I thought that we'll get some games from different levels, and also it makes it a bit easier to... I think on 888Poker the $15 games are the highest that are running constantly. I think there are something like $100 games in 888Poker, but I have never seen them run. I have never seen even, I think there was something like $55 game and Turbo 6 Max and it never runs. I have played some, I think $175 super turbos, but never actually I could have bet even more here. 75% would have been better because there are so many draws that our opponents can have. We are trying to use the music as to wake you up that something good is incoming, and in here I did take the min bet because there's one limper and the king 7 we can hit pretty strongly, and now this is practically what we want to hit. And I think that we can always get our opponent's chips in the pot, and with second nuts it should be fine. I don't know, I perhaps think that maybe we could have also shoved the turn, but it's easier to get this guy in if we just call. It's close though, and even though I like to open small blinds a lot, against this kind of guy that has played played so many hands thus far passively. And in here, it seems like a bit that now it's going to be like what I complained to Neo about on the last public-private coaching, that the opponents are so call happy that we are raising more of value range from small blind and button. But in 888Poker you can pretty much see that the games here, they are great. The game quality is really good. As you can see that in this game, I think that it's quite likely that there are 3 players that don't know what they are doing, and in here it's quite likely that there's at least 2 players that don't know what they're doing, and already 1 player has left the building. So in here, if the opponent would have bet like half a pot, this would be a call. But when he bets so big, I don't think that we can profitably call, because there is not a lot of turns that we can play aggressively. Even though we have, or there are like 6 cards that we can play aggressively, and then there's 1 semi-good card that gives us or 8 cards that give us a cut shot, so. And in here we improve our draw, but we still don't have anything. I'm mostly pot controlling here, and I think that when we are having a 3-way pot, it's really hard to win it. Win it at that point, even though opponent checked the flop. Now it's really hard because I know that I'm winning it. It's sometimes, especially when an opponent bets just a min bet on the river, but I don't think that I'm going to beat him enough of the times. I'd need to be right in 1 in 7. And if someone knows how you can put the slider to 888Poker to only increase by 1/2 of the big blind, it would be really helpful. I haven't found a way for that yet. This is a bit nasty. I think that when our opponent is 92/0, bluffing the flop is probably not a good idea. So this was a mistake, and this was a really bad mistake. And Kauris, are you testing iPoker? Does it work in Estonia? Yeah, I will be doing some iPoker in the future. In the future, as we have Coral Poker as our partner site, and I want to do iPoker as well for the sit and goes. Probably some MTTs as well. Well, in the future. But for 24H Poker, they don't want to get Estonian customers, so that's something that we can't do. But iPoker works in Estonia, so. And when the opponent 3-bets us, min 3-bets, I'm going to be 4-betting as value here, and I'm thinking that do our opponent, if he calls, that we are going to go all in pretty much anyway. Pretty much no matter what happens afterwards. But you can see that it's going to be interesting in 888Poker because there are so many types of players on the table. When there can be nitty players on the table, and there can be maniacs on the table, and I think this is the place where it's the most common to have loose passive players on the table. And in here, because it's a 3-way pot, if it would be just small blind versus big blind and he would have limped, I would have been trying to attack the limper at least on the flop. But when there are multiple players involved, I don't think that there is that much value with complete air hand with only really few good turns. And the Edo is in it again, and I need to be tightening up a bit, and this is actually pretty nasty. It's just 13 big blinds, so I don't think that I can fold that easily on the bottom left table. And even though this guy looks to be really needy, and actually that was a 3-bet, so actually that's something that I shouldn't have 4-bet. So that's another mistake. With 5s and here with 4s, we are going to shove, like, he opens 5x, but there shouldn't be. If he gives up any hands after he opens 5x, it's going to be wildly profitable to be shoving, and usually against that kind of range or that kind of player that opens 5x, usually we are not in a bad shape. And in here, when the guy seems to be involved in so many pots, it makes it a bit harder for me. But when he checks the flop and now we actually turn some value, and now we are just trying to get something out of it. And on the last hand, the 5s, because the players in this table, the Kepponen and PVD 1, 2, 3 were so loose players, I think that shoving 5s, even though we had something like 14 big blinds, and that's something that we don't prefer, that we... Actually, I thought that we rivered some equity there, but that's probably the worst that could have happened there. And when we bet like half a pot and the opponent comes over, I don't think that we can fold at that spot. And one thing that's interesting in these games is that if I'm looking at, for example, the 6-handed turbos, the $15 games, and 9-handed turbos, you can get the 6-handed turbo with 30 cents lower rake. So in 888 Poker, learning to play 6-max is pretty profitable because the 6-max games are raked less than the 9-max games. So that's one interesting observation to notice. But so we have lost the 2 first games. If this NCM guy limps, I'm going to be shoving over his limp. And pretty much if this guy would have shoved, I would have still gone all in. And if this guy shoves, it's going to be with a weaker range, so we are going all in this hand. Practically only if Mr. Hush shoves and this Xana calls, we are going to even think about folding. But usually we are in there, we are getting the money in. And this will be interesting because in this game, when there are Dragonfly and Mr. Husk, those are both players that I want to abuse with a really wide range in multiple situations, because I think that they will be folding a ton. I don't know what that Facebook button is, but I'm just thinking like, what the fuck? And sorry, I shouldn't be swearing, but oh well, I'm not pressing that button. I'm just wondering that they are putting a Facebook button on the middle of the table with no explanation. What does it do? And on 888 Poker, it's good that when you are opening new tables against, and we carry on with our run that has been something else than decent. On 888 Poker, when you lose a table and when you register a new one, it will go back to where the last table was eliminated. So if you just don't move your tables, you can multi-table pretty effectively on 888 Poker by just opening new tables and letting the screen fill itself after a while. And good evening, Snodikin. And Neo, yeah, I have the game settings, the minimum bet size is to 1 BB, but I want to have the half BB bets. So that's something that I haven't found out yet. And thank you, Snodikin. I hope that we will carry on running a bit better. We have crashed a lot against just a bit better hands, so we haven't had any deep runs yet, but it's sit and go poker. It might be that when we are having a coaching session, it might be that we are not even getting to the money in any of the games, and it has happened in the past. And in here we are going to shove value range against this NCM. Before 3 to 4 handed, he played like 90% of his hands by limping, so I think his limping range is going to be really wide. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark him as a player that I want to play against. And actually, I'll mark this guy as well. And yeah, after the rain sunshine comes. Usually it's like that if you are just playing winning poker and you are playing enough hands, the sunshine will come, but it might take a while. And in this situation we are trying to find out a position where we can just shove it and trying to... And now it's actually really bad because if we are having players that know what they are doing behind us, with the 3 big blind stack we shouldn't have that much folding equity. So we are pretty much screwed in here because the blinds raised on a really bad situation. And these 6-handed turbos, they are pretty much with the normal buying structure. Like, or normal price pool structure. In the... in the 6-handed normal speeds, we noticed that the games were pretty weird. When it was the first 6-handed structure I have ever seen. And the 6-handed structure was that the 3 players that are getting the money, they are getting exactly the same money as they would be at the 9-handed. So it was pretty similar price structure than in a 9-max turbo or 9-max normal speed. Interesting limp call, but that's something that should be expected of this guy, so... And with a queen tree, if this would be like ace tree or king tree suited, I would be probably going to be shoving it. But we are needing some high card equity because this guy is going to be calling a lot. And Snodikin says that rain is still okay if you have a lot of protection for it. Yeah, that's an interesting way to say it. But that's also something that if you are having a decent bankroll, then you shouldn't be worrying too much. This is actually really close that can I shove it. This is really close because I want to fold it even though I have only 3 big blinds, so now I'm completely out of fold equity against anyone. And this is a situation that the sit and go player never wants to be in. And on the top left, this is a situation a sit and go player wants to be in. Neo asked for what would be your range for that move during high blind play. Could you explain a bit what you mean by high blind play in that situation? Because if we are having an opponent that we are thinking that is going to be limping something around the bottom 50% of his range, so he's playing like 70% of the hands and he's playing 20% by... And in here, Even though I said that we have no fold equity, we got this Mitch Mia to fold. And that should happen like never. If an opponent has only one big blind more than the big blind, you are never folding your big blind. Or you are practically never folding your big blind. This is a bit interesting. Ace-4 just plays so bad against, if we are against a good hand, Ace-3 is going to be amongst about the worst hand that will play there. And when he has shoved a lot before and he had only 11 big blinds. So if I'm thinking that something might be a trap, that looks like a trap, or that smells like a trap and that looks like a trap, so quite likely that is going to be a trap. And in here, with the Queen 3 suited, it's going to be probably better than the next hand, and we are trying to hide our stack a bit by just making a min raise and hoping that the opponents don't see that we are having just 55 chips remaining after that. And Snodikin asks why no re-steal, because the Ace-4 off hand, if our opponent is trapping, it plays really bad against every trapping hand, and it looked like a lot that our opponent will be trapping with the hand that he was in. So that was only because I believed that my opponent's range for min raising 11 big blinds deep when he has just shoved that deep thus far all the hands, I think that their range will be consisting mainly of nuts. And when it will be consisting mainly of nuts, I don't think it's going to be profitable for us to be shoving Ace-4 off. If that would be something like King 5, I would be shoving. And could you still min 3-bet and fold to a 4-bet? I don't think so. I don't think that it would be profitable. Because of the stack sizes, and even if the opponent doesn't have anything, I think you should read the thread that Neo started about how to react to minimum 3-bets. And I think that shows pretty much of the problems that we are having. And now it's going to be really nasty because the Dragon Flyer has now, I think he has 3-bet like 3 times out of 3. So we can't open small. And now we are approaching the sub stacks, and especially when the blinds go up. And this is a nasty situation to be a middle stack in, because our opponent can put tremendous amounts of pressure on us. But it's a good place to be, and actually I think that's a misplay for Dragonfly. And he should be shoving a ton there against Mr. Husk, and there should be pretty few cards that he shouldn't be shoving, so but we'll see. We'll see how this carries on. And 5-6 off, as a middle stack, it won't be good enough against the big stack. If it would be like small stack against middle stack, that would be a hand that we pretty much need to push to not give our opponents more chips for free. Here we are going to 3-bet for value. And Mr. Husk 4-bets us from the big blind. It's going to be really nasty, because there shouldn't be that many that bad cards in his range when he 4-bets, but then we are not having a lot of chips chips behind, so it was a nasty situation all in all. And we were flipping, so on that exact hand. And I think this is going to be plus EV, even though we are on a bubble and there is the big stack between us. But that's among, like, I'm going to shove any ace here, but that's mainly going to be it. So I'm not going to shove wildly here because this opponent doesn't need to call a lot to make this a terrible equity disaster for us. And now we are on the heads up. And one of the best things in 888Poker is that when they are switching to the heads up mode where you are having the great pile of money next to you. And I'm a bit sad that I don't see the huge pile of money here. So, like the 6-handed turbos, they are not having the amazing heads up stuff. And that's something that's interesting because that would be... Opponent should have called by Nash ranges with a 10-9 suited if he plays Nash. But I think that I'm going to get the general opponent to play more hands if I'm just min-raising the hand that I had. Yeah, now I hope that there will be some great sunshine. And when I said that the $15 games are the games that are pretty much running at all times, now we can see one $30 game, and so there will be higher games also, but they are not running at all the times. This is Sunday, so Sunday is also one of the best days to grind, so this is the day that the traffic is going to be about the best. In here, we are going to put it all in, and I think that our opponent will be having some flush draws that he will get all in there with. And there's also a lot that he will... Actually there, I don't like the shoving that much, and that doesn't matter that our opponent showed up with 2 pairs. Because I think that we are ahead. But if we are getting it all in against a flush draw and overcards, we are not in a great shape. So I think likely there it would have been better to just call his re-raise. And when we have min-raised here, it's going to be that we are going to go all in on any flop. And it's going to be interesting because this Dragonflyer seems to be knowing his stuff, and I have trapped him twice on similar occasions, and he 3-bet shoves 6-4 off. And that doesn't make any sense if you are having an opponent that has trapped you twice with a min raise. I don't know why he thinks that that would be a good shove there. But, oh well. I'll take it. And in this game, it's going to be really interesting because there are 2 players that are sitting out on the table, so we'll see what happens there. But so this is the first game we won, so it's not like there is not going to be a coaching session without the cash or without the money finish. And this time it was a first place finish, which is pretty nice. In these 6-handed turbos, the price structure is going to be 70-30. So it's going to be a bit rougher than in PokerStars when it's going to be 65-35. Or at Full Tilt Poker it's also 65-35. But on 888Poker the price pool structure in 6-max turbos is going to be 70-30. So it's even more important to be winning those heads ups a lot. So heads ups are even more important, and the game that you are playing before the heads ups in 888 poker, it's imperative that before you get to heads up, you are going to get to the heads up most of the time with a bigger stack, because you are getting a lot of money in there. And in here, I'm completely confused what my opponent will have. I don't actually know, like, when he bets 20 on the turn, he shouldn't have, like, anything, or I just can't find out what my opponent could even have there. But it's actually pretty nice to see that there are people that are having a lot of money because they have started the they have started a $30 game and they can afford to sit out part of it. And the two other players, they don't seem to be poker players, let's put it at that. So I like the games here because you don't need to game select a lot. Even at higher levels, if it runs, it's usually a good game on 888 poker. And I think that you can actually get quite a great ROI in 888 poker. I'm betting here because my opponent just checked, and when he checked on the flop, I think that he would be folding most of the hands that he's going to be checking, so... And well played, Queen 10. Now I can't even know what happened there. Oh yeah, where I can't even think about what the opponent could have there. What would make any sense. In there, the half a pot c-bet needs to work only 1 in 3. And I think in there it's imperative to make it about 1/3 of a pot, because it looks bigger than the smaller c-bets there. But really nice to see you back in the chat, Snodikin. I don't think that you have been here in a while, and in the English forums there has been now a lot more action. Action later, mostly thanks to Shakal and Neo that have been pretty active. And Neo said that I noticed that some winning players 4-bet shove all in early game with ace-king. Do you think that is a plus EV move? I mean that myself, I would only call that with kings or aces and queens if the guy looks fishy. Am I exploitable because of that? I think in that you need to have a lot more detail in there. Like, I don't think that if an opponent on cutoff opens, let's say opens on the first level, opens from the cutoff, then gets 3-bet from the big blind, and I don't think that 4-betting kings is going to be bad there. Or if you are like something like, let's say 40 big blinds deep, I think that could be actually quite standard. But if it's like an UTG open and then UTG plus 2 3-bets, and then someone 3-bet shoves 75 big blinds from the UTG with ace-king off, I think that's going to be terrible and bad. But it depends. I think that you should look through what the winning regs that are going to be shoving the ace-kings. Like, what are the players that are shoving the ace-kings regularly? What are they getting called by? Because if they're regularly getting called by ace-queen and ace-jack, it might be a good move. And also, depends on how much they are investing in the pot. Like I said, if it would be something like 40 or 30 to 40 big blind stack depth, the 4-betting could be that if you are only calling the 4-bet with queens or better, it's going to be bad. And actually in the case that you see an opponent 3-betting ace king, I think that, or 4-bet shoving ace king at the early stages, I think what you can do there is to increase your call 4-bet shoves range to include like from tens to ace king yourself. And also on those kind of regs you should also look that if they are shoving ace king early on, are they also shoving some of the worse hands? And in here we can set mine. So I think the correct question and I just got too busy with. It's a bit nasty in here when it's a complete blank, but our opponent doesn't know it. And in here I just bet because of... I just min bet here. I should have bet a lot bigger, and I think I'm losing value because of it. I should have bet 4 big blinds, but I was close to being sit out with queens, so I just had to act quick. And even min betting pre-flop is going to be better than... It's going to be way better than folding it, and it's going to be better than... It's going to be better than... And in here, when our opponent is not going to be folding a lot, we are trying to extract as much value as we can from this hand. I should have bet higher on the flop. And that was a nice one from Sakal, that if you need to be rebuilding your house, perhaps you are having a tilt problem. But I think on like what happens in game, for example, if you are seeing that an opponent is 3-bet shoving, then you should be thinking only on how much can you exploit the opponent playing badly. In here I chose not to c-bet because if our opponent doesn't fold a lot on the flop, and in here I'm going to be bluffing the river as well. I don't think that we are... That's actually a bit nasty. Now it would have been better to bet the flop. And our opponent called our bet pre-flop with 8 deuce off. So this guy is especially a guy I want to play against. And our meddling hand got a lot better on the turn. And now it's going to be just a question on extracting value out of this guy. And this is a hard hand because I need to bet here and I need to bet big because I think that way I can make all the flush draws that are possible, all the aces, making the greatest mistake possible. But if our opponent is not having a flush draw or an ace, it's going to be really hard for him to continue. And when this Angicholi is not going to be, or is not 3-betting a lot, he's not betting post-flop a lot, it makes it really hard for me to let him do the betting as well, so... Hard positions, hard situations on how to get the most value in that exact spot. And yeah, this mechanic 850, he got 30 bucks to burn, like registering to a $30 game and then sitting out the whole game, not even coming there at the beginning. And if I'm giving you one poker strategy advice that you should take right now, it's that don't play like this guy. If you register to some tournament, please play it. You can't win anything from a tournament you are not playing, except if the players are getting themselves out, and this actually should be really awesome if this mechanic guy just is there and gets like heads up with the Angie Jolie or something that we a bit lucky lose. And now I'm going to treat this just as I'm going to treat a small blind spot when mechanic is sitting out. So now I'm going to think that there is going to be just one player behind me. And Shakal, yeah, in hypers it happens as well. And now I feel horrible about shoving the ace-6 suited when I saw that our opponent called me with ace-6 suited. I think it's a kind of horrible call because I won't be even shoving all of my aces there. So it's going to be something that I think is going to be really minus EV for the opponent. And this Lorraine guy has limped a lot, and now I'm just thinking that do I have more equity against him? And when Angie Jolie practically never... If I would have even overcards, I probably... And I'm trying to get some value out of Lorraine. And I got the value out of the bottom pair, and I think that's pretty awesome. And now I'm scared when Angie Jolie trapped me, but when she hasn't done anything else except limping, I can't put him on a trap every time she limps. Actually, a really interesting spot because I could be playing here with a really wide range because of this guy is sitting out. And that's something I don't understand on 888Poker, that what are these guys doing? Yeah, I can like, let's register to a $15 or $30 game and let's not play it. And 99 problems, welcome, welcome. I have seen you in the chat after the coachings to say that you have now just missed it. But now you are here. And there is going to be plenty of play left. So is this going to be your first time that you are here when it's going to be live? And I feel so bad about this when this is... I'm having a kings against a sitting out player and nobody else opened or nobody else played, so I'm only getting the blinds. And now the guy comes back when he has just 1/3 of his stack left. So I would have waited 3 more seconds and I could have had a caller with my kings. What do they say? Patience is a virtue or what? In here I think any king and something like at least 60% of the hands are going to be good enough hands to be shoving. I'm going to be re-raising for value because this opponent can be here with plenty of draws, and from the draws I'm getting most value out on the turn. I'm speechless. I got 2 streets of value from bottom pair, and even though he got 2 pair on the river, it pretty much shouldn't matter, the 2 pairs on the river. River because there's a higher pair already, and in this I'm getting min 4-bet, and with queens I'm not going to be giving up for min 4-bet, even though it smells nutty, but he doesn't need to have anything but something like jacks and ace king as his range for it to be plus EV to be going with queens. And yeah, that's like playing a hyper turbo on 888 poker. Except we are going to play some... And in here now I'm going to think that what I'm going to be shoving on a button, because there's one sitting out behind me. So I'm just trying to remove him from the thinking there. With something like King 5 off, I would be calling here, because the bet size is so small compared to a pot, so I'm getting really great pot odds. But the Queen Deuce off is going to be a really, really crappy hand there. And yeah, but there will be super turbos, and actually I think the super turbos on 888 poker are really fun. And in here I can't think like, what am I doing when I'm opening King Deuce off from under the gun? So that's something that I can't recommend, even though you see that it works. Works with the turn and river kings, but that's way too wide of an open. Something like King Jack suited would have been a good open there, but not King 10 off, especially with the stack sizes. That but it's nice. We got a really nice pot with aces. And in here, even though we lost, we are still having pretty great equity in the game. Without losing the aces against queens in this other $30 game, it would have been looking really good that we have been running bad at the lowest buy-in games. If my opponent is not folding enough, it doesn't, and he's not playing really aggressively, it doesn't make that much sense to be bluffing there. And actually now it scares me a bit, because now we are equal stacked with Angie Jolie. And Angie Jolie in this game, I think she's doing the opposite of good sit and go play. Like, he played really loose on the start of the game, and now when the blinds are going up, she's folding more. And I hate this kind of situation. It's actually... I'm unsure if it's going to be plus EV if the opponent is not going to be folding anything. But as we can see that the opponent folds something. But I'd still... Like, if my opponent has now, like, opened twice on the span when we got four-handed to now, from 34 hands and opened 2 hands, I'm wondering a bit, what does he open and fold? I'm thinking that, does he open enough? And also, does he fold enough? So that's going to be actually an interesting hand, and I'm a bit unsure that is it going to be plus EV. Now I hope that the Angie Jolie and Lucky will collide, and I hope that Angie Jolie will win this pot. In here, the Stalionis has been playing pretty aggressively against us, so we are going to be shoving a lot. Now we are not to say we are trapping there. If the opponent doesn't fold enough, even A3 suited is not going to be that profitable. And even though this Stalionis has been aggressive by stealing himself, until we know how he reacts to being stolen himself, we are going to find that one out by stealing from him and trying to find out, like, how does he react. And even though if he's aggressive stealing a lot, that doesn't make that player an aggressive 3-better necessarily. it's more likely that he's an aggressive 3-better. And in here we are betting for value against Angie Jolie with the middle pair. When the opponent has never folded anything on the flop, then even middle pair is going to be for value there. So then I'm going to increase my value range if I'm having an opponent like that. Increase my value range and decrease my bluffing range a lot. And in here, ace-4 is going to be hard to play post-flop. Post-flop, but it will be, with the fold equity that we are going to be getting, it's going to be plus EV to just shove. And in here it's really interesting because there's a guy that's at 62/45, and I'm unsure that if he is a fishy player after all. And why I'm unsure is that he's having a huge stack. So that can be a legit stack abuse, especially as he has done or I have seen a lot of steals from him, so it's going to be a bit interesting. And in here, oh, then we are going to need some more tables. In here, the flush draw, it increases our equity somewhat, but I don't think enough. And the opponent shouldn't be hitting anything, but we are risking a ton, especially when there is the short-handed player as well. So and Shaka 99 problems, I don't think that question is off topic by any chance. Now I folded a great hand when I was looking at the lobby to get new tables, and then I didn't find the right table. This is actually interesting because if the Angie Jolie calls, I can go all in with a way wider range than I would otherwise, and otherwise I need to, or actually I could, if I would know that this lucky lose is a good reg, I could have shoved that by a long shot, and this folding the ace-jack, it's something that's terrible. And 10-6, 10-7 off is going to be, it's going to be something that's probably not going to be plus EV to be just calling. And we are sliding dangerously to be a middle stack in the games again, and being the middle stack sucks. Like, I think in here I could induce with jacks or better. I don't think that I could induce against lucky even with ace-king suited. I don't think that I'm going to get enough equity even against a completely random range. But so 99 problems, the question isn't off topic by any chance. And my opening ranges are mostly dependent on what kind of opponents there are behind me, and also what kind of opponents there are behind me, and how much or how deep we are. How deep we are effectively. So in a turbo, the early stages play pretty similarly than a normal speed. But in a normal speed game, the players are quite likely to be a bit looser than in a turbo. So I think I'm opening slightly wider I'm opening slightly wider in a turbo. So in here we got second, so we didn't win a single flip, and now we are going to try to get the final games going. So there is one $15 game. And this Lucky Loose, we can see that he's playing a lot of $15 and $30 games, so it's likely that he's going to be a reg. King Jack I would be shoving over, but King 8 off, even against the Angie Jolie, is going to be... It's going to be most likely unprofitable. A bit of a shame that the Lucky Loose didn't call Angie Jolie there. And 99 problems, it depends on the effective stack sizes. I like to open 3x on the first blinds, on the first, when we are having 75 big blinds, effectively mostly. Then I like to be opening bigger, but I'm going to be toning it down really quickly. Queen 7 is going to be good enough to be shoving there, but it's something that I don't still like. When there is slightly lower stacked player in the hand also. And that's horrible call with 8s with the Angie Jolie, because if she doesn't call, and this guy's range is probably, it's pretty close to flipping against my range. So when the opponent calls there, I think that Angie Jolie's range should be something like Queen's plus or King's plus. And 8s is going to be really far away from his range. But that's something that I also calculated in, that I calculated that even though if the opponent calls, the Angie Jolie plays so badly that it's quite likely that she will be calling even after the call, and she will be doing a big mistake there. And 99 problems, to carry on with the discussion, like somewhere around 30 big blinds I'm starting to min raise, so like 25-50 blind level. So I think the response is like, am I opening 3x or 2.5x or even lower? It depends on the stack depth. And I have pretty much registered to all of the tournaments I'm waiting, so let's see what starts. I'm trying to get a bit of more tables going on. And I'm trying to do it so that we would have as long as possible having a decent amount of tables. And as you can see, that if I'm starting and playing to the end empties tables, it's going to take around half an hour for a session. So these 600 turbos, I think that they are a bit quicker than on Poker Stars. And Neo, I like to play a bit more aggressively. The tighter the range is in general, the higher your bet size should be. But in general, I think that opponents are doing more mistakes by folding too much. So that's why I usually think for going for I'm thinking about going for bet sizes that are lower than in general in books. But if you are having, or if you are playing a really needy range on UTG and early and mid position, then it makes perfect sense to open bigger. And I think in the books the problem is that it might have even been normal just a few years ago, but the sit and go game, it evolves with such a speed that most of the stuff that you have learned from 5 years ago or 6 years ago, they are not that applicable to today's games. Especially on PokerStars, I think that the games on PokerStars are probably amongst the hardest ones. At least what I have seen on On-Game and 888Poker and other sites. So I'm thinking that on here, let's see, I'm having a note on that player. So he shoves way wider than Nash, heads up 7 big blinds deep. So we are having a note on him. If we are getting to heads up, we can utilize that note. And actually that's something that I have done pretty badly. I should have been doing a lot more of note writing. Note writing during these games, because these players are having a lot of leaks and I'm going to be best equipped of exploiting those leaks if I'm writing enough notes. On early game, I don't think that's needy, and I think that it's going to be... It's probably wider than what you are used to and what the book recommends, but that's where I would also recommend going with lower BB amounts than the book recommends. So I think it's about understanding what you are trying to do and then adjusting your own playing style, and that's also something that you can experiment with. And interesting to see the mechanic guy, that we thought that he perhaps only didn't find the super turbos on 888Poker. He's on the next $30 game as well, and if he's giving money to me, I won't mind it, but we are hoping to... It's going to be interesting to see that if he's going to play this time around. He should play, but... And in here I turned the 7s to set mining. I don't think that there's that much value in trying to get the player to fold that probably doesn't like to fold that much. It's going to be actually a bit hard when the opponent just bets just half a pot, and it's not that likely that he has had that great of a hit, and we are also having backdoor. And when we got to the backdoor, so then we are having so many good turns on the river, and if we are getting a good card to the river, we are going to get money in. We are having 12 good cards, so we need to get the rest of his stack always when we hit, so that's really close. I think I have read something like, I'd say 5 books on sit and goes. And I think apart from Colin Moshman's book, pretty much all the books from on sit and goes are pretty bad. So I'd say in general I don't like the sit and go literature that much. And even I think the Colin Moshman book, it's pretty basic, and it's more about getting a good start and not learning bad habits, and I think that's something that I can recommend it. But there are some books that are plainly giving away bad advice. That I don't think that anyone could win with the advice that the books are giving, and some books I have read that are saying that you can still make like 20% ROIs on $100 games, and you will be making millions with sit and goes if you just can play this much sit and goes. And when you are doing what this book says, you are going to be moving up approximately every 500 games, and they are only thinking that you are like winning on $50 sit and goes, you are still winning 10%, or like getting $5 a game. And I must say that that hasn't been happening in a few years. For MTTs, any good books? I think that's a slightly harder one, as I haven't been thinking about the MTTs that much. And in here we are going to be calling the Mr. Husk, as he has been... It's really interesting, the mini 3-bet. I thought that if he shoves, we are going to be calling. And this is going to be really crappy against the Mr. Husk. If we are against a higher pair, we are screwed. And I think now it's quite likely, when he doesn't bet the turn, that we are not against a higher pair. And we are most likely against ace-king. So let's check and let him make a move here. And I think we need to call here, because he should have plenty of bluffs here, and he shouldn't have a good hand, but he might hit the river with king-jack off. That he next to min 3-bets here. I'd say that's an interesting one. Screwed up some hands a ton when I'm trying to write a note. So I'm trying to write that note, so the next time if I'm getting to that kind of situation, I'm going to have enough information to be thinking about shoving. And in here, I'm going for a big bet on the river, because I think that the opponent is quite likely having a king there, and we are going to get maximum value out of a king. And he called me with jacks. This is awesome. I thought that he will have showdown equity for sure, and if we will have showdown equity, I should bet big on the river. And for what Neo says, that Razor's Edge should be really good. I have heard that as well, so that would be probably one of the first recommendations. And I think that there are some oldies but goldies. For MTTs, I have read the... What's the guy that has written a ton of those basic books? Harrington. It's like Harrington on tournament poker, and there is like volumes 1 and 2. All of the information isn't current, but I think there are some good stuff to learn. And also Arnold Snyder's Poker Tournament Edge or something. It's Arnold Snyder's book on tournament poker that are interesting because the thinking is completely different. So that's something that I don't agree with everything that Arnold Snyder says, but I think that's going to be an interesting book to read to get some contrarian ideas and get some ideas on what you can try yourself as well. And in here we are going to be calling both of these guys. This guy because he's going to be so short stacked, and this guy because he's being so aggressive. But I think Elki is a good player, and it's the most recent tournament poker book. And like on the Harrington's tournament poker book, there is a lot of stuff that has moved on. Like the poker world has gotten really good at some contrarian strategies on what Harrington has wrote about, and the average player plays completely different than what Harrington thinks, but there are still good stuff on how to think, but not all of the actual strategies. And also the Arnold Snyder's book is something that there is a lot of good on, like bankroll management. The Arnold Snyder guy is or used to be a blackjack professional, so he knows about how to calculate the variances and risks, but I think he has been way too overestimating the edges way too much. I think the poker books, one problem that why I don't like poker books that much is that the poker books are advertising win rates that are pretty much unattainable. Like, if you are looking at a poker book win rate that says that you can make this much or this great of a win rate, but like nobody on Sharkscope leaderboards can do that great of a win rate, or nobody at Sharkscope can win that much from the games that the books are saying, I'm pretty prone to calling the books bullshit. And Marcus Y says that Gus Hansen's book is pretty good as well. Now I need to see the previous hand. This is actually close because the guy has been so aggressive. I'm still prone to fold because I think that I'm going to do a greater mistake if I'm going to be calling too wide there. Because the table is also, I think the table is going to be really good. And in here, even though this Mr. Husk and Lucky Loose are likely they are regs in the games, and for the Mr. Husk, he has already shown that he knows how to think, and that's worrying. I don't like players on the same table that can think and can change strategies. I like my players making a lot of mistakes and not adjusting the abuse I'm trying to do. When this Cetus ICM has been so aggressive, then it's going to be... Oh, I can't get to the previous hand. Oh well. But I think that's also for the books. I think it's slightly problematic because even though the book says that some kind of win rate is achievable, but the books are made to, like, they're made that people can sell books. And when people are selling books, they are selling more books if they are promising that just read this book, it's only 300 pages, and after that you are equipped to making tons of money in the games. And in truth, it might be that you read this book and you might be able to beat something like on PokerStars $3.5 games, and even those you are not going to beat by a lot. In here we are still having some showdown equity, so I'm not bluffing the river. I think that we are having some decent showdown equity there, and it's pretty interesting. And I think now it has been on the news that Gus Hansen has lost 20 millions right now playing online poker. I'm a bit unsure that has he won more by all the businesses he has been endorsed and the sponsorship deals. Because I think Gus Hansen is pretty good at the endorsing and making money out of sponsorships, part of making money with poker. Interesting for this guy to be limp folding with about 7.5 big blinds. So I wrote it instantly down and marked him as a player I want to play against in the future. But I think that if you think about Gus Hansen, that you might think that he might have some ego problems, but would Gus Hansen ever been at the situation that he can have those sponsorship deals if he hadn't been that reckless and haven't had that much ego problems? I think that the part of being reckless is also the part that got him pretty high pretty quickly. So and that's also something that I'm thinking about with some of these players that are playing the nosebleeds and high stakes, that some players have done that they are practically gotten broke multiple times, and just one time they have stuck to the limit. And I think that like the high stakes players are a bit different from everybody else in that regard, that they have, it's easier for them to risk it all. But for someone that wants to make poker a profession, I think that most of the people could make a poker a profession by just getting rid of the big ego and checking the ego out of the door. But to make the nosebleeds, I think that, like, if you are having a decent strategy, if you are not taking huge risks, you can make a poker your profession. And that has quite a high likelihood of success. But if you are not completely reckless, I don't think that you are raising to the nosebleeds. I think most of the players that are at the nosebleed level have been pretty reckless with their bankroll at some time. And I think on the high stakes there are players that have been really smart with their bankroll management and everything. But on nosebleeds I don't think that there are many players. And for MTTs, I think the MTTs are the easiest play, like game technically. They are the easiest game to win because the opposition is pretty bad, and the opposition will be really bad when the variance is so high that you can know nothing about poker strategy and you can win for a year playing MTTs by just running good in one tournament. And you might play the 50/5. I think everyone has seen the guys that are just limping every pot and having a huge chip lead and going to a final table in a megafield tourney. It's variance as well. But in those games also the variance is, like, they're one of the hardest games, if not the hardest game to play professionally. Because the variance is going to be so high. And in here I'm going to call the 9 king off. He has been aggressive enough from the small blind for it to be profitable for me to call a hand that's, I think something like king 7 would be on the edge, or something like king 5 suited. And when the opponent just limped, then I think that I can do it even wider. And on that, making the poker professional, that I think that most of the people are having the mathematical skills that you would need to be playing poker at a competitive level. But then it's going to be all about ego, work ethics, like how much you are playing, how much you are studying, and then there's going to be luck that have you run good at the right moment. If you have run good at the right moment and you have gone up to levels that you can live comfortably from, and then learning to play, it can also happen that way. But if you are running really bad at the start, you are likely never getting poker that much taught. Or if you are among of the really few. I think I saw a documentary on Andrew Roble, and Andrew Roble did show his sit and go graph, that when he first started out at party poker, I think he put in like $100, and what did he start with? $50 sit and goes and never went broke. So it might happen. I think he had something like 500 or 700 sit and goes, and his ROI was something like 75%. And that would have been really awesome to run it through some kind of luck calculator, that how much of that was luck. And I think that's called running good at the right moment. Congratulations, you have reached Chrome status. Oh wow. I think this is the first session I'm playing on 888Poker this month, and I'm already up to level Chrome. And Lucky Loose has been pretty aggressive in these moments, and I think that he's going to have a lot of crap in his hand range. And now I'm against Ace Queen. Oh well. Lucky we got the king on the river. And this guy has gotten some great hands against us when we have had crappy hands but shove-worthy hands. C to size CM, we are going to be shoving it. And also about the strategy that you can read on the internet is also it sometimes makes me... It was just like, I think it was last week, or I read a new article that was written like 2 weeks ago that said that on an MTT, every time you are deep in an MTT and you are having 10 times more chips than your opponent, you should be putting your opponent all in. Actually, I think we are getting enough equity in here. Even though we are likely not ahead, we are still getting over 40% of equity here. And actually we get 37% of against his exact hand. Actually, it might be that we are not getting enough equity there. So actually I think the Queen 9 probably wasn't that good of a call. If this would be something like Queen 8, I could have shoved it pre-flop. But now when we are having showdown equity and there are good cards for us, we are going to go for a cheaper showdown, if possible. And when the opponent bets big and our hand is not that great. And you see bet top left on KK74 board. Let's see if we can get the hand out. Now I must say that I probably can't find the hand quickly. Do you remember my hole cards? Oh, the Queen 10. The Queen 10 hand, it's all about... And with 4 clubs, I don't think that we are going to have enough equity there. I don't think the check call would be better because there's not that much that we beat. So I'm turning that hand into a bluff. And Shakal, I know where, but I don't want to... I don't want to advertise our competitors even when they are doing something stupid. And B, I don't want to be mocking our competitors. I just want that we are doing better material in general and not... But I'd say that there is a lot of material in the internet that you... And we got a straight on the river, and let's try to get some value out of it. I don't think that we are going to get that much value, but some king will probably pay quite a lot. Yeah, the Queen 10 off, it's all about what I think is going to be my showdown value there. And when I'm thinking that there is not that much showdown value, if I know that the opponent is a thinking player, then a check call might be better because my opponent shouldn't be believing that I have anything. And so it was a tease up to the final card, and unfortunately it was a pairing card to the board. Oh well, we still have chips. As long as we have chips, we have a chance. And in here, the Lucky Lose has been surprisingly tame in the heads-up situation. I don't think we should induce with 7s, so I'm going to be shoving it. Queen 4 should be a Nash equilibrium push. But I think on the King 4 board, it depends. If I think that the opponent is a good reg and a thinking reg, then betting there doesn't make a lot of sense when the opponent knows that I pretty likely have nothing there, and it's really hard for me to have anything decent, so he can raise me out of the pot, or he can play the turn in a way that makes it really hard for me to carry on. I'm going to be shoving this, even though this is a great hand. I think that I'm getting my opponent to call more against a shove there than a smaller raise. And would you see bet most of the boards in that situation? It was against Lucky Lose that has been playing pretty tamely post-flop and being... He was a really needy player on the early game, and he has given up a lot of pots post-flop. So when I'm thinking that my opponent is a weak player, I might be giving him some space to bluff when I have showdown equity, and if I don't have showdown equity in the situation, I'm more apt to bluff a player that I'm thinking that will fold more in the situation. And with the Queen High, I'm actually unsure about how much showdown equity do I have against the opponent's whole range and what the opponent will be just calling. TD. It's going to be close because my opponent hasn't shoved Nash for sure, and now it's not about Nash, now it's about nasty when the opponent got the turn and river, but we got some money. Unfortunately, I think on $30 games we got exactly $0. But it should be a winning session anyway, or at least close to a winning session. And now we have just one table remaining. And in here we are having quite a dominating chip lead, and when we are having quite a dominating chip lead, what are we trying to do? We are trying to keep the dominating chip lead by attacking our opponent ruthlessly. And there might be some situations that we don't want, but if, for example, in this situation, if C-deuce ICM folds, this guy can't do nothing else but fold. So when these guys are in a folding war against each other and trying to get the money, it's just our advantage to try to get as much chips for us before we are getting to the heads up. And now I think it's also, we are going to be raising this. It's only 53 chips. And actually it's interesting to see when I said earlier on that there are so many different structures on 888Poker. Like 9-handed turbos do not have antes at any point. 6-handed normal speeds do not have antes at any point. But 6-handed turbos start having antes after 100 and 200. And what's that about? And then there are like super turbos without antes. So I think that you really need to know what you are playing when you are playing on 888 Poker, so that you are knowing the exact structure of the games. And this is actually an interesting situation from these guys. Real Brasas should fold anything but kings plus here. Because on the next hand and the hand after that, actually in this hand he should also fold. And I think 9-5 off is a fold here, even though it's going to be really close. Against a random hand there and a better hand there. Because we can't increase our equity that much in that situation. But if the opponent would fold it that hand as well, and I would have shoved against C2 ICM, C2 ICM would have been all in on that hand against me. Or then if he folds, then the real Brasas is going to have a larger stack on the next hand. And now we are... Oh well, it wouldn't be fair to be going to a heads up with 8,000 chips anyway, so we are evening the chip stacks a bit. Yeah, but as I said, that there is a lot of value in going 888 Poker, and if you are going 888 Poker, I hope you do it through us. So then you'll be supporting our making of videos and creating more material in the future for you as well. And usually we are having some great, and there will be more private coaching promotions for 888 Poker, so I think that we are also having the best value out of the sites. And if you already have an 888 Poker account, you can also support us by being active on our forums, register, be active, learn about poker yourself, and also by subscribing to our YouTube channel, subscribing to our Twitch channel. Then you will also be the first one to be noticed when we are adding new videos and new stuff that we are doing. And in here, you saw that we had like 8-1 lead when the heads up started. And it took only 4 or 5 hands that we lost the tournament. So I'd say that's a bit interesting. Let's see how the day went, because I'm a bit interested to see how the day went today. That's something that I probably shouldn't be that happy about. I thought that we are playing about break even, and it felt like it. If we are looking at buy-ins, this is about 1.5 buy-ins minus, and the EV adjusted is about 0.338 BBs plus. But when you are winning the small tournaments, like winning in the small tournaments and losing all of the $30 tournaments, and with the structure of 70-30, you really need to be winning the games. If you are only getting the second places, even though you are getting, or like in here, my in the money is 37.5%, and the average would be about 33%. And in this situation, if I would have had one of these number 2 spots would be a number 1 spot, then it would be probably about break even for the day before the rake back. So it shouldn't be a lot of a difference in games, and in about 16 games a lot can happen. And this was about, we could do 16 games when we played 4 tables at once and just carried on registering for, and it took about 1.5 hours. Actually 1 hour and 38 minutes, I think, in total. And as you can see that you can get the most out of these coachings if you are a member and if you use our chat and ask questions. You know that in most situations, like today, there were so many good situations in games because on 888Poker there are always a lot of interesting situations because there's so much adjustment going on and so little going with the standard lines. And some of the standard lines are requiring a bit more explanation because of the players are going to be a bit different than usual. And actually here also, if we're looking at the buy-ins, I think in here we can see that you are not winning a lot of buy-ins if you are coming in second. Like you are winning less than one buy-in if you are coming in second. And if you are coming in first, you are winning 4 buy-ins. So if we are looking at here that we are removing the filters and going back to root, like when we are minus 1.5 buy-ins, we would be up 1 buy-in because we are winning about 4 buy-ins if we are getting to number 1, and we are winning only half a buy-in if we are getting to spot number 2. So winning those heads up is going to be really important. And as I said, on next week Sunday we are going to have some interesting stuff going on with the super turbos that are the game that's running the highest up. So like right now I can see multiple $42 games running, I can see a $70 game running, I can see like 8 $21 games running. So those are the games that are running the highest up, and I think there is great value in those games because I think the players aren't nearly as good as the players are in PokerStars Hypers. So it should be an interesting short stack evening. And if you like MTTs and you can speak Finnish, we are having a special night with Korpisoturi on Tuesday evening. So on Tuesday evening we are having an MTT special with our MTT coach Korpisoturi, and that's going to be in Finnish. I thought to announce it in here as well because I think there are going to be some Finns also listening to this. And also one more thing. Also, the more likes we get to our videos, it helps us spread the material, and the more members we are having on Poker the more material we can create. So that's important for us that you are liking our videos if you are liking them on YouTube. And Shakal, yeah, time to learn Finnish. It should be about the hardest language in the world, but you have still something like not even completely 2 days to go, so it should be easy. But we'll see if we can do something in English as well with Korpisoturi. That's the MTT guy for us. So we'll see what happens in the future. And now it's time to tell good night to those that are going to sleep. And if you are still playing poker, may this be a winning poker night for you. Bye bye.